Hello, everybody. Welcome to PowerToFly's latest webinar. I'm Lexi. I'm the social editor at PowerToFly. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn at PowerToFly. Today, our senior data analyst, Vanina, is back as our special guest to dive a little bit deeper into Google Analytics. So she did a webinar for us a couple months ago, maybe a month ago or so, little beginner intro to Google Analytics. And today she's going to show you how to do more with Google Analytics. So as the social editor, I've spent a lot of time in Google Analytics, and Vanina has helped me a lot to figure out how to use it, how to navigate it, what I'm looking for, how to set up custom email alerts, all that kind of stuff. And it's been so helpful. So I know that she will really be rocking you guys with lots of info today. Just a couple of items before we get started. We will be recording this webinar today, so you'll be getting an email with it in the coming days. So you can always come and refer back to it. Once you get more involved in Google Analytics, you'll be like, oh, I think Vanina said something about that. Well, it will be on our YouTube channel, it'll be in your email, you'll have it to refer to forever. And then also, we'll be happy to take your questions. So at the end of Vanina's presentation, we'll be doing a little Q&A session, but feel free to enter your questions as we go into the chat roll. And Courtney, one of our talent managers, is in there, and so is Denise, our head of marketing, to collect your questions as we go. And then we'll get to as many as we have time for today. If we run out of time, we'll be doing a connect post at connect.powertofly.com with a little wrap up with the video and with any of the questions we didn't get to during our live presentation today. So again, if you're just joining us, this is PowerToFly's webinar, How to Do More with Google Analytics. And now I will turn it over to our super special guest, our own senior data analyst, Vanina.
Hi everyone, I'm Vanina, and it's very nice to be with you again today for a second time for the second part of our Google Analytics webinar. After the first part, we got a very positive feedback from lots of you saying, yeah, you have to do this more often and you have to build more on Google Analytics because it's really useful tool. So we are back today, and as you will see in a second, we are going to cover a lot of topics today, and it's going to be very interesting and also very informative, I hope. And about the interesting part, I'm speaking from experience because actually over the weekend I practiced my talk in front of my 6-year-old. So at bedtime, instead of reading him a bedtime story as we do every night, I just practiced my slides. And you know, in 5 minutes he was sound asleep. And normally it takes 45 minutes with the bedtime story. So hopefully in 1 hour, I will find you either very knowledgeable on Google Analytics or sound asleep. Both will work good for me. So let's then start with our slides and topics for today. And I'm sharing my screen. Just a second. Now you should be able to see it. Okay, so these are the topics that we are going to cover today. As you can see, that's a pretty impressive list. And my idea is not really to go into the nitty-gritty details of everything because it's impossible in our 1 hour slot. Each of these topics will easily cover a whole webinar or half a webinar in itself. So my idea is just to give you what is useful out of these topics, what you can do, and to give you an idea where to start. So today it's very easy for people to find information when they know exactly what they're searching for. And that's what we are doing. So let us start with campaign tracking. Why are we covering campaign tracking at all today? You might ask, what does it have to do with Google Analytics? Well, Google Analytics is a tool that's used heavily by marketers. And because of that, these people are doing lots of campaigns and lots of leads. And as you know, if you're doing campaigns and spending money, you better be able to attribute the traffic that comes from these campaigns correctly. Otherwise, you're just wasting time and money, and nobody wants to do that. So that's why I'm taking this small detour from the big topic of Google Analytics and talking about campaign tracking and using the UTM parameters. So what are the UTM parameters? UTM stands for Urchin Tracking Module, And don't worry, you will never have to repeat it after today. This is just a piece of code that you attach to a link, a URL. And that piece of code tells web analytic tools where this particular user came from. So what was the site that the user clicked before he came or she came to this website? The UTM link has 5 parameters: a source, medium, and name. These are the 3 required parameters, and you have to include them every time. And then the term and content are optional, and you use them if you have more than one campaigns on the same topic. So for example, if you're doing A/B testing on banners or something like this, then you use those parameters. And I have pasted here on our slides the second link. It's a real link for PowerToFly that we have used on Facebook to promote this webinar, today's webinar. And you can see how such a link with UTM parameters looks like. So it's not very easy and not very nice to read from a human being, but I assure you the computer doesn't have this problem. So if you don't want to use long links, you can always use one of the online tools to shorten it and to convert it just like to 10 or 15 symbols. But I suggest keep using the UTM parameters, or if you are not using them, start using them. When to use them? Well, we suggest all the campaigns that you want to track, all the Facebook posts, all newsletters, all email campaigns that you send. Also, they're good for offline campaigns. If you do TV or radio or printed media, you can create a link which will have just a slash and then one keyword, like you have probably seen it, PowerToFly/TV or something like this. This is an offline UTM link, and it will help you sort out your traffic. I want to talk briefly about the direct traffic issue, and that concerns smaller brands, so smaller companies that are not so famous and who are not local companies that rely heavily on word of mouth or local traffic. So those small companies, or that would be most of our audience today, people from companies like that, you should not, when you look at your direct traffic for new users in Google Analytics or another web analytics tool, this traffic should by default not be more than 60 to 80% of your new users. If it is the case, then you might want to review your campaign tracking, because it's very unlikely, unless you're a very famous brand, that new users who have never been to your website before will know of you and just type your URL and come directly to your site. That's what direct traffic stands for and means. People who type directly your URL and come to your website. So this could be for the percentage for your returning traffic, but not for your new traffic. And then finally, where to find this campaign information once you start using the UTM links in Google Analytics. So you go to Google Analytics, then the acquisition menu, and then campaigns or traffic, and you will see it under source or medium or just under campaigns or traffic. You will just, whatever you click there will work. Then that was our detour, and now the next topic is more related to other people, not only marketers, and that's the User Explorer report. The User Explorer report is something very useful that appeared first in March 2016, so a couple of months ago, and you can locate it under Google Analytics Audience User Explorer. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to jump to Google Analytics and show you the report for real, because it makes more sense. And I'm sorry, I know it's annoying jumping between the slides and another tool, but I believe this is more useful and informative for you. So this is the User Explorer report. We go Audience and then User Explorer. As you see here, you can choose a specific time period, and it's a very quick overview of how active your users are and who are your most active users. So how many times they've logged in, how long they stayed, bounce rate, and so on. All the information on all your users. Keep in mind, this is not real data. This is just fake data we have in our staging system, which is our pre-live environment, which is filled with fake profiles. So this report, you might be wondering what this client ID is. This is the Google client ID. So this is just a unique number that Google gives to people who are using different devices. This number, unfortunately, is not very helpful for you because you cannot identify who are the people behind it. So who is that specific user who has 7 sessions? That's why you can do a trick, and I will later show you how to do it technically, but I will show you now the result. You do a trick to, instead of using the Google Analytics user ID, use your own user ID, your own company's user ID. And when you do that, it's very easy because you can now, the users are no longer anonymous to you. You can look up in your database and you know who user 58118 is. And then you can do an action with this user. You can target them with a specific message and so on. And what this report is really useful for is when you click the user, you have, just with a single click, you have all the information about them. So you know when they joined for the first time, you know which channel they came from, what device they used, and you can also see each of their sessions. That's really great. So this is each of the pages they clicked in each and every session on your website. You can filter just for events that they did or for goals that they completed, and it's really nice. So you can track in and filter whatever they did in each and every session and page view. So this data will allow you to do data mining or to do better segmentation or just to group your customers in a much easier way. And you can use this report, the user experience report, with segments. So if you go to the User Explorer report, and you can add segments here. So for example, you can create a segment for the LinkedIn traffic versus Facebook traffic. And you can compare what are the typical user paths of your Facebook users versus LinkedIn users, for example. So this is really precious information, and other tools are making you pay a lot for it. And this is free here. So next on our list is I promised I'm going to show you how you can track your own user ID. That's a feature that's available in Google Analytics. It's allowing you to upload your own user ID in there, but my experience is that not so many people actually make use of it, and it's a little bit of a pity because, as I just demonstrated with this report, it's really useful if you do that, because then the users on Google Analytics are no longer anonymous to you. You can look them up in your database, and that's really adding a lot more tools for you to contact these users or to do something with this information. So to actually do the user ID on your site, you need to have several prerequisites. And the first is you should be able to, or your system should be able to assign unique ID numbers to these users. And whether it's a combination of letters and numbers or just numbers, it doesn't really matter. It just has to be unique, and you have to be able to do it every time the user logs in, so it has to be consistent. And you also have to be able to identify this user and assign the same ID to him or her regardless of what device they use on your website. So they might log with a mobile phone, or they might log with their tablet or their desktop. You have to be able to every time assign this specific ID to them. So this is the first case. Then the second thing you need to be able to do is pass this unique ID number to a Google Analytics variable, and I'm going to show it to you in the next slide. And the third thing you need to do is to actually activate. If you've never used user ID tracking in Google Analytics, you will have to activate it. This is done in the admin part of Google Analytics, and I will jump there and show it to you. So we are right now in the admin area. You go to property, because this is done on a property. You select the property for which you want to create it, and then you go under tracking info, user ID. So once you click it, in your case, because this will be the first time that you open it, this slider here, the session unification, will be set to off. I suggest you set it to on. And this piece of code here that is automatically generated for you, which says how to implement the user ID in your tracking code, This is something you have to copy and paste and send to your developers, because they can use this piece of code to push the user ID from your system to the Google Analytics data layer and make your life easier than when you need to add this to a variable. So that's the easiest way to go for it. So remember, just this piece of code is what your developers will need once and implement it in the system. And then after you do this, you click next step and you will create a new view, which you will be able in your Google Analytics, when you click on your views, you will be able to choose it, and then you can call it something like my site on user ID level or something like this, so that you can you know which one it is and you don't mix it with the other views. And yeah, that's pretty much what you have to do. Then the next step is the little bit more tricky one, where you have to create a variable and you have to do it in a tag management system. So such a tag management system is Google Tag Manager, which we are covering in more detail later in this webinar today. So here I will just give you a list of what you need to do, and then later, when we go to Google Tag Manager, I will show you what are the different types of variable that you can use for each of the cases that I will show here. So depending on how your website is created, there are different ways this user ID is appearing on the site or is visible to Google Analytics. One way, and probably the easiest one, is if your developers push it on the data layer. Then you need just a data layer variable, which I will show you later, and that's really easy. If they don't want to do that for some reason, they might pass it into the CSS information of your web page or the HTML information of your web page. Then you will need another type of variable, which is a little bit more complicated. You might need to write a little bit of JavaScript yourself in order to get it from there. Or they can pass it in a cookie. Then this is a third kind of variable. But yeah, as I said, we are going to talk about this later. One thing which is very important here is when you use this user ID on your site, never ever create it to contain any personal identifiable information. An example would be, please don't use the user email address as a unique identifier, or don't use a combination between their first name and last name as a unique identifier. If you upload such personally identifiable information into Google Analytics and they find out about that, they will simply ban your account and delete your data. It's in their terms and services and they're serious about it. So please just use a combination of letters and numbers, which even if somebody hacks your account and gets this information, they don't have a way to match it to an email address or to a person and actually know who are these people. They will just have the numbers. Okay, so now let's go to our next topic, which is a very, very interesting one, calculated metrics. So calculated metrics are available since November, I believe, last year. But very few people are aware of that, and even less people are aware of what calculated metrics are and how useful they can be. So as the name says, calculated metrics, these are just mathematical calculations between existing metrics on Google Analytics. And this might not sound as much to you, but as an example, you can take the number of sessions and divide it by the number of users, for example, and do it in the interface. And then view this calculation and the result of this calculation directly in the interface. So until now, you're probably downloading a lot of data from Google Analytics, and then you do calculations between the different metrics and variables in Excel or in Google Sheets. If you use calculated metrics, though, you can do this real time. You just create the formula and it's there calculated for you automatically. No need to download. So how do you do it? You do it again. You have to set it up in the admin panel under view. So let's go under admin. We are here under view now, and you see calculated metrics. So you just click a new calculated metric. You give it a name, which is a meaningful name and will be telling to you and to your colleagues what the calculation is about. So something like conversion rate, new registrations to existing users, or something like this. Once you type the name, you see an external name, which people in your company will be seeing, is automatically generated for you. You have a control over what's the format of this new variable, this calculation. You can choose a float, an integer, currency, time, or percent. And here is the formula that you type. All mathematical calculations more or less are accepted. And there is a limit on basically 1024 characters. So the only thing is that you need to separate the names of the variables with these curly brackets, or called also braces, and that's it. So you just type like metric 1. You have to put the correct name of the metric here. You divide it by metric 2, and that's it. That's how easy it is. And then once you click create, it will be created and will appear in your Google Analytics, and you can create and add it to a custom report. I don't want to save it because there is a catch here. If you have a free account, you are only limited to 5 calculated metrics. I hope Google will increase that limit, because right now it's very difficult to just choose 5 such calculations, especially if you are using a lot of customized content and you need to do a lot of those calculations. So that's why you don't want to waste it on just testing something. And yeah, you will still, unfortunately, if you have a free account, this will not allow you to do all your calculations in Google Analytics, but at least the most important ones. So what can it be useful for? What kinds of calculations? For example, you can be calculating the conversion rate per user rather than per session, and I will show it to you what's the difference in our next slide. If you are working with subscriptions, then, for example, you can create a calculation on the new subscriptions minus the cancellations. If you are working with refunds, you can calculate the revenue minus the refunds. Or you can sum up all your goals that you're tracking on Google Analytics. For example, if you're tracking registrations separately, first orders separately, you might be able to sum all of them and know how many goals in total are completed. Also, if you have an online shop, you might be able to create such calculated metrics on product views per transaction, for example. How many products did the user view before they bought? It's really limitless possibilities, whatever makes sense for the nature of your business. And as I promised, here is an example of a better conversion rate that you can get through calculated metrics. And I'm focusing here on new registrations. And new registrations are our goal. So a registration is something that happens only once in the user lifetime. However, this same user will come back to the site several times after that, and we'll have several sessions. The way Google Analytics right now calculates goal conversions is taking your goal, in this case new registrations, and dividing it by the number of sessions. And as I said, in the case of registration, a session is not suitable for it. A more suitable metric will be an user, because every user will register, but not in every session you're going to have a registration. So the blue calculation here is the calculation done with a calculated metric. So I'm taking the number of goals or the number of registrations, dividing it in Google Analytics by the number of users. And as you can see, the conversion rate is 11.76%. The default calculation by Google Analytics is the red one. And as you can see, they take the same number of registrations and divide it by the number of sessions. And then the conversion rate is 8%, 8.26%. So that's a big percentage difference. And the only thing that's changed here is whether you divided the registrations by sessions or by users. But you see, it's a big difference. Whether you go to your manager and you say, oh, by the way, the conversion rate of this campaign was almost 12%, or you go and you say, the conversion rate was 8%. So for things like this, for calculations like this, the calculated metrics, they make really great sense. Okay, now, because as I said, you are only limited to having 5 of those calculated metrics, you will still need to download data in Google Sheets and do some calculations with it and post-processing. But there is also a tip I have for you here. There's an easy way to do it rather than just use the download button and then import it. This is the Google Analytics Spreadsheet add-on. It's a long name, but it's a very cool feature. So how to get it? It's an add-on for a browser, and I've seen it for Firefox and for Chrome. I'm unfortunately not sure if it's available for other browsers, but you can always check yourself. So you just have to go to your add-ons on your browser and search for it. And then you just install it. And once you install it, you open a new Google Doc, Google Spreadsheet, and it should appear there under add-ons. So I'm going now to a new sheet. There, I've already have it pre-installed. Under add-ons, I go to Google Analytics, and you just click create a new report. And what you are going to get is a pop-up, which is really just for you a door into the API of Google Analytics. So all the data that you see in their interface, you can query from here. And that's very handy because the data gets delivered in the format that you specify in this case in Google Spreadsheet, and you can combine the power of all the numbers and data coming from Google Analytics to the visualization and calculation power of Spreadsheet. And that's great because you can do reports like this, and you can set them up in such a way that it's easily updatable report, where daily you just go and click the button add-ons Google Analytics run reports, your information is updated and then automatically recalculated. So we just need to give it a name and choose our metrics. And for our case here, I'm choosing users, I'm choosing new users, I'm choosing sessions, and I am choosing dimensions. I would just get the easiest source medium. And that's it. You can choose which account, which property, in which view. You have control over that. You just click the run report, and now the information will be running. And once it finishes, it will appear here. That's the control that you have over the report. And just a second, I think it didn't run. Okay, yeah, now it did run. So yes, the report appears here as data, and it always has the same format, but you have control here over the starting date and the ending date. By default, it chooses the last 7 days, but you can put formulas in here. So for example, you can have today -1, and always today that's gonna display yesterday's data, tomorrow that's gonna display today's data. So you can easily do this to have here data for yesterday, data for the last 7 days, data for the last 30 days, and this is automatically updated every day when you update the report. And your report will be adding each new day to the calculation. So this kind of calculation we use heavily when we want to calculate seasonality, for example, or when we want to calculate yesterday versus the average for the last 7 days, or the average for the last 90 days, something like this. We are heavily using it. And you can filter. So the metrics, as you see, and the dimensions we entered from the small pop-up window. You can sort, and it uses a very simple syntax for sorting. The ascending one, you just type the variable on which you want to sort, like this, Google GA users. You sort only by one variable. And if you want to sort descending, you just add a minus in front, and that's it. Then for filters, you use regular expressions. And if you've never worked with regular expressions, you can just Google it, but it's very easy. And then for segment, you can segment the traffic either by creating a new segment from here, saying, for example, I want only users with source Facebook, or you can use a predefined segment that you've already created in your Google Analytics. So it's limitless opportunities. And I want to show you here a small excerpt from a report that we are daily using. You see, this is data coming only from Google Analytics, but there is no way in Google Analytics to create such a rich graphs because the graphs in Google Analytics are just a single variable. And here we can combine several variables, ratios, yesterday to the average for the last 7 days, yesterday to the average of the last 4 such weekdays, which is really not possible in Google Analytics, even if you create a dashboard. So this is a report we are using, just a part of a report that we are updating every day with this add-on. I can say we are not only using it, we are abusing it, because there is a limit of 30 reportlets per one such file, and we already have 5 input files, which means more than 150 reports just for a single. It's true, it's a monster report, but every day it's fed with 150 reports from Google Analytics. And it just takes 3 minutes to click the button to update it. So very useful, and I really recommend that you work with it. Now let's review the cherry on the top of our ice cream, the Google Tag Manager. I know a lot of you are impatient that we get there. So what is Google Tag Manager? Well, it's really a tag management system for your web analytics tags. What is a tag? A tag is really a piece of code that stays on your site, listens for user actions, and then sends this information to a server. For example, a user clicks a button on your site, and this piece of code, this tag, tells Google Analytics server, oh, user with an ID 123 just clicked button apply for job on job ID 14 at 11:35 a.m. today. And that's it. So that's the information transmitted to the Google Analytics server. From there, it goes into the Google Analytics data warehouse. And from there, it's grouped, classified, post-processed, and appears on your report. So without tags, there will be no Google Analytics. And those tags are actually the heart of everything that you measure. There are a lot of tags that Google Analytics does for you automatically, so you don't have to do anything there. This is all the default data, all the data on who are the referrers, what's the demographic of your users, what are their clusters in terms of their search, and so on. A lot of this information is visible by default, and you don't have to do anything. So you can definitely live without Google Tag Manager or without a tag management system if you're just fine with the information that you see when you log into Google Analytics. However, if you want to track information on button clicks on your site, or videos watched on your site, or ebooks downloaded, or messages sent from one user to another user, or forms submitted, for all of this, you will need Google Tag Manager or another system like this, where you can create your custom traffic, custom tracking. Because there is no way for Google Analytics to track a button click on your site if you don't want it to do it, if you don't make it do it. So how do you use Google Tag Manager? Well, once you have your Google Analytics login, you can log in into Google Tag Manager unless there is a specific hierarchy in your organization and you don't have access to it. So in this case, you will have to talk to the people who manage the access, and you will have to be granted access. But otherwise, if it's your website, if you have access to Google Analytics, you can log into Google Tag Manager. So first, if you've never used it before, you need to download a piece of code, which is called container, and you need to send it to your developers, and they will install it on each page that you want tracked, and that's it. That's the only time that you will really need your developers. The idea of Google Tag Manager and other systems like it are to make data analysts and web analysts independent of developers. So before tools like that existed, tagging was done in JavaScript by developers, and it was subject to release planning, release schedule, and it might take a couple of weeks or months for an analyst to get the tags they need implemented. Because, of course, tracking is never the highest priority for developers. The highest priority for them is money-making features on the website. So tools like these are giving independence to analysts. They allow them to do their tracking themselves, and to do it, to release it with a click of a button, so you don't have to wait a couple of months for it to be released. So let me now go into Google Tag Manager and show it to you, and show you where to get the information for the container. So you see, you go here to admin area of Google Tag Manager, and then you go to admin container install Google Tag Manager. So let's find it, container settings. Wait a second, container activity. Okay. Oh yeah, I know. It won't display it for me right now. But yeah, anyway, so that's the path you will see on your, because I don't have, for this specific account, I don't have the privileges. But yeah, for you, when you have the full privileges to access the container, it's under admin container and then install Google Tag Manager. And there you will see a piece of code that you have to send to your ITs. Now, let's go back to Google Tag Manager, because I want to show you the specific parts of it, the tags, the triggers, and the variables. So the tags, we just talked about the tags. This is the piece of code that is telling the server what information to record for this specific page. Tags are basically equal to events. This is, in most of the cases, action done by the user or action done by the page loading. So for the tags, you do need some trigger. A trigger is just a condition that tells the server, yes, there was an event happening, or no, there was not an event happening. For example, if somebody clicks a button, send, on your web page, there might be several send buttons. So you might have a send button when you submit a form, or you might have a send button when you send a message. And you only want to track for messages sent the times when a message send button is submitted. In that case, you use a trigger which contains, for example, the page URL. If there is messages in the page URL and a send button is clicked, then fire the event message sent. But if there is no messages in the URL, don't fire it. In this case, you would make sure forms sent are not counted as messages sent. So that's what a trigger is. And those triggers you have to specify yourself. So you really have to plan for each event or each tag that you want to track, each user action, what are the conditions under which you want to track it. Is it on every page view? Is it only on specific clicks? Is it only on specific button name? Or is it only in specific time of the day? It's up to you, and you have to plan it and you have to implement it here. It's an easy tool where you click the new button to create a new one, and you can choose this trigger. Would it be a page view? Will it be a click? Will it be a specific error? Will it be form submission or custom event? For tags also, you can choose what type of tag. And this is really good. You see, it's not only Google Analytics tags that you can control. It's also tags for other tools. And some of those tools are not even related to Google, like LinkedIn, like Criteo, like Comscore, Mediaplex. So from Google Tag Manager, if you get used to it and if you know how to work with it, and your company is also working with Mediaplex, for example, you can install tags or events for Mediaplex. This is really useful. And if you know HTML, if you're good with HTML, you can create such tags and control them from Google Tag Manager on tools that are not in this list. So it offers you limitless possibilities, really. So let me just choose Google Analytics right now because it's the easiest thing you can do. And you just need to enter your account ID number, for which we have created a variable. And then you can choose, again, is it an event that you want to track? And the event here is an action by the user. Is it a transaction, like a financial transaction? Is it a social event? Is it a page view? It's up to you. And it's there is something even better. So you can choose tag priority. So for example, sometimes you might want to track errors in the payment process. And in that case, you want to listen for the payment event, user entering payment information. This event fires, and then afterwards, if there is an error, you might install tracking for errors, but you create the logic like this. If there was a payment event firing and now I get an error, this means this error is about the payment, so it's a payment error. Then the user entered wrong credit card information, or the credit card has expired, something like this. But with this tag firing priority, that's exactly the type of tracking that you can implement. Logical, so you can connect the events and ask one event to be firing only if another event was firing prior to it. So this is really gives you full control over what happens and what fires when and what is tracked when. And then on fire on, you have to specify the trigger, as we talked about what the trigger is. And then the last part that you will be working with a lot is the variables part. That's actually my favorite part of Google Tag Manager, because variables are very, very versatile. So first, they can serve as labels where you record information on your users. So you can record there if you want, for example, their gender or their education or their income or their job title, everything that makes sense for you. And then you can either use this label as a separate variable in a report, or you can use this label to help a trigger decide if an event is fired or not. And let me give you an example here. For example, you might want to do a retargeting list of all your clients who have spent more than $1,000 on your website. In that case, every time that a user logs in on your website, you might want to do a check in your database how much money they've spent on your site, and then attach a variable to them at the time of login, which will have the value 1,000 or more if the value is 1,000 or more, or less than 1,000 if the value is less than 1,000. And this label stays with them. Imagine every time the user comes to your webpage and logs in, you attach a post-it note to them. And this post-it note will have a different value provided on which whether they have less or more than 1,000 bucks spent with you. And then you can set your trigger, add this person to my retargeting list if the label says more than 1,000, or don't add him if the label says less than 1,000. So as I said, they are very, very versatile. You can use them for reporting, or you can use them for implementation. Really great. And that's pretty much it. That's a very high level overview of what is possible and what are the different types of variables and metrics and what you can do in Google Tag Manager. Now, as always, when we do implementation of something connected to code, eventually we will have to get to testing and debugging. And that's what I want to do right now. I want to go testing and debugging. I know it's boring, but it's useful. So testing and debugging is a boring process, especially if you have experienced it with other tools. So for example, before I switched to working with Google Analytics, I've done a lot of implementation and testing with Adobe Analytics. And testing there was you have to have a parallel environment, like a staging environment, pre-live, where you do all the implementation, all the tests, you click all the buttons you want to test, and so on and so forth. And then you wait a couple of hours or a day until data appears into the tool. And then You look at the data, you think if it makes sense, if it doesn't make sense, and then if there is a bug, you go and you start from scratch digging where the bug is. Now, you don't have to do this with Google Analytics. With Google Analytics, if you want, you can just do implementation on your live site. Because it's not actually releasing it until you click the big red publish button. You have the preview button here, which is right here next to this big publish button. There is a drop down. When you push it, there is the publish button, which please don't click unless you have tested and double checked, triple checked everything, because it will push your changes live. And there is the preview button. And the preview button, when you implement a new event, you click the preview button. Then the second step is to load your site. And you will immediately see there. You will immediately see this console here, which will pop up on your site and will tell you what is happening, what is Google Analytics seeing. So for example, every time you click a button, you see here that something happened. I would need to click the button again because my session has expired. But yeah, you will see something will appear here, and you can view which tags fired and which didn't fire. And then when you click, for example, the tag, it's going to give you the information where it fired and why it fired, what were the triggers, and if it didn't fire, you can review. Let me just choose one that didn't fire. You can then choose and see why it didn't fire. So for example, it tells you here what are the filters, and it will tell you what went wrong and why it didn't fire. So it helps you a lot in understanding what worked and what didn't work in your implementation. And then even better, if you go to Google Analytics reporting, there is the real-time reporting. So under the real-time reporting, every time you do a new test, your new test will appear here. And don't worry, it's not going to mess up your live data because you see it only in the real-time data. It's going to disappear afterwards and not be added to your live data. But that's how you go. First, you do your implementation in Google Tag Manager as a first step. Then you click the preview button here under Publish Preview. And once you click the preview button, this console here will appear on your website. So you have to reload your page and will tell you what Google Analytics is seeing. And then you can verify if the information is immediately seen under real-time reporting. That's the conventional way to do debugging. There is also another way to do debugging, which is a combination of those 4 methods here. The first one is a tool. It's the browser developers console. That's probably what most of the developers are using. This is the right-click and inspect element. You can also use this. Or depending on how your website is done, you can find the tracking information in the source code. So just right-click on the page and view page source. There is another add-on which is called Omnibug, which is a Chrome extension for web metrics requests. Very handy one also. And then there is another add-on, which is Google Analytics Debugger, and it's a Chrome extension again, which will load the debug version of Google Analytics. So sometimes if you just want to do a quick check, the view page source will work, or even the browser developers console, because also when you're doing implementation, this is very handy, as you can right-click the button and it tells you information on your button. I can even show it to you. So if you click here any button, it will take you to all the information about this button that you can use, for example, the class of the button and so on, that you can use in creating a trigger. So this is a very, very handy tool, the first one. And then there is also another tool, which is also relatively new, couple of months old, probably with the newest updates, the Google Tag Assistant. And the Google Tag Assistant is not doing much, well, many more different things than the other tools that I showed you, but there is one trick with it. So it's another add-on that you have to download, and it's it's time saving in two ways. The first is the record button that it has, and I will go to the tool and show it to you. So that's, I don't want to save it. So once you have your site opened, let me get rid of all those. You can just go under your add-on lists and start the Google Tag Assistant, and it's immediately showing you all the tags, Google Analytics tags and Google Tag Manager tags that are firing on your page. And from there, you can click and review the information in here already, or this is a really priceless feature. You can click record and it starts recording. And then you can do a full test. So for example, if you want to test a registration process, this is really great, because then you don't have to do one step and then go review the code, then do another step, go review the code, and then forget what you did and what you didn't. You just click and do your tests. You click all the buttons that you want. You click submit all the forms that you want. So it doesn't matter. You might be testing, clicking here and there and entering information for 1 hour. And then when you're done, you go there again. You see the red dot here, which tells you it's recording. You stop recording, and then you go under show full report. And under full report is going to show you all the recorded pages. So each click you did is recorded separately with all the information there. And you can review each and every step you took and review the code. So what did Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager see there? And there is even something more useful. If it tells you alerts, so if there was an error in your code, it will give you this exclamation mark and will tell you hints why the error appeared. And then you can go back, find the error, change it. And once you change it, you don't have to repeat your test. You just click update report. And then the test is automatically repeated, and you see if the error was resolved or not. So this is really huge. This is huge, especially if you have to do a lot of testing yourself. And I recommend it. So if you have never done implementation, well, if you have never done debugging, I suggest you just try a couple of methods before you settle on one and see what's useful and what makes sense for you and what doesn't make sense for you. And that's it. Believe it or not, that's the end. We've covered everything. So you now know all of those things, or at least you have ideas about how they work. And whatever you find useful, you can research on your own, or you can come back and to us and ask us a more detailed question. So right now we are moving into the Q&A session, and I will try to answer as many questions as possible. But if something is very specific or the answer would be very long, then we will include this into our publication, which you will receive afterwards a link to, as well as the video, the recording of today's webinar. Thank you for your attention, and I hope not everybody is soundly sleeping, so there will be some people awake who will be asking questions. So I will stop sharing my screen right now, and Lexi, I will wait for you to feed me with questions.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Vanina. I can't imagine how anybody would be asleep right now. That was so awesome. So much good information. I learned so much, like you always teach me. So, okay, we've got some great questions. So let me just go back and find the first one. Does each client have a different client ID for their mobile device versus their desktop?
It depends how you implement it. So in your own system, probably it really depends on the nature of your business. But I would say no, unless you want to track what this client is doing on mobile or what they are doing on desktop. In most of the cases, you will need to have one single ID for that. And the way it works for Google, I think there they have it's device-based. So one user, if he or she uses 3 different devices, will have 3 different user IDs. But most companies prefer to have just a single user ID that they assign to the user and not to the device.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, next question. I'm just starting out. I would like to know, what is the best place to practice and learn besides Google Analytics training?
Well, the best to learn is if you create your own site or blog or YouTube channel and just put the Google Analytics tracking code there and start implementing, like, be creative. Just put a couple of buttons, a form. It's very easy to add those elements, and just ask your friends to click here and there to generate some data for you, and then you can see what works, what doesn't. And there is a huge Google Analytics community on YouTube, also on Twitter. They are very, very helpful, and you can ask a question. A lot of resources, really. Just Google it.
Great.
But yeah,
Thank
the
you.
best is learn by doing.
Definitely. Okay, cool. Next question. Is it possible to track clicks on a link that points to an external website? For example, a survey on SurveyMonkey's website from your own site?
It depends where the click originates. So if on your website you put a link to SurveyMonkey and somebody clicks it on your website, then you know they clicked it on your website. And if you, for example, your website or your company creates a deal with another company for you to appear on their newsletter, and then you send them a link to your company with the UTM parameters, even though the click will take place on their server or on their newsletter, you will still get this information because it's your tracking code.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think this will be our last question. It's a really interesting one that I know Vanina will have a great answer to. So thank you all so much. First of all, before we get to the last question, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions after the fact, you can email them to us at hi@powertofly.com or hit us up on Twitter or Facebook, both at PowerToFly. We'd be happy to answer your questions after the webinar too. So for our last question, what does Google get in return for providing these tools? Do they also have access to our data?
That's a great question, really. Well, what do they get? A lot of people are asking this question because Google, when they came to this market probably about a decade ago, everybody was wondering what do they have to do here, as how do they profit? They do this for free. Google Analytics is for free, so 90% of their users use the free version. So they are definitely not making money by subscriptions. But today, data is power and data is money. What Google does, they collect your data, of course, but they do it in such a way that they cannot identify you. Even Google, they cannot identify you. They just, from the moment you start interacting with the internet, they assign a number to you, and this number is fully anonymous. So for them, you are not Jane who lives in New York. For them, you are user 12345, and they collect what you do on the web, but they don't really know it's you. So yes, this information is very valuable, and they do collect this information. It's not only Google, it's everyone. So every website where you go, it will collect your information, and then they will use it for building models, data mining models, or building customer segmentation. In most of the cases, this will be very, very helpful to you as a customer. You've probably seen it if you are searching for something, let's say on Amazon, you are researching buying, I don't know, an oven or something like that. And if you start searching for these specific keywords like an oven and a model or these keywords, eventually when you browse in the next days, you will be seeing banners of different ovens that you clicked, not only on Amazon, but on other providers as well. And it could be useful because think like a company. So companies, they see you coming to their website, engaging, and just clicking this and that product, but then doing nothing. These products might stay in your cart, and then you do nothing. And then what they do, they offer you a promotion, of course. So they want you to spend your money with them rather than with somebody else. And that's why I personally do it myself. When I want to buy something, I never just see it and buy it immediately. I see it a couple of times over a couple of days, and in 90% of the cases, I am offered a promotion before I buy it. So for you as a customer, the fact that sites are collecting your data should not be really scary, because there are positive things out there. I hope I answered it.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, you guys heard it here. As Vanina says, data is money and data is power. So go get in Google Analytics and get some data. Thank you all again so much for joining us today. We'll be sending you a link with this recording, and check connect.powertofly.com where we'll also be posting it. And Vanina, huge thank you to you. We were back by popular demand after your first webinar. And thank you for letting us dig deeper into Google Analytics and showing us a little more of what we can do.
Thank you. It was nice to do that. And yeah, just let us know what you would like to know, which we didn't cover, or where we should go in more details for our publication. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, so much. Have a great day, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Yeah.